Good afternoon, everyone, or morning, perhaps if you're on the West Coast. Hello, good day. Welcome to Healthy Doses with Dr. Erica E. Watson. I am Dr. Erica E. Watson, and today I have a guest I'm so excited to introduce. You all didn't know she was coming. She's here. You didn't know. She's here, though. So, we're going to start our conversation off today with an introduction and then a discussion. And then I'd like for you to give your feedback and questions as we go through. Just know that at the end, in our typical fashion, I'll open up the opportunity for you to ask questions as well. Let's get started with our slides so that I can get to the introduction of our special guest. Today's topic is getting and staying healthy. We're going to be talking about managing high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes and some more disorders or conditions that might arise during our discussion. Here, we are going to welcome our special guest. This is our distinguished guest for today, Lindsay Watson. And on our next slide, I'll be able to read you her whole bio. Get ready for this. First, I'd like to give some thanks. Oops, this is what happens when you're live. First, I'd like to give some thanks to Career Communications Group Always for enabling this opportunity, for Women of Color, for Black Engineer of the Year Awards, otherwise known as BEA, and for Lindsay Watson. So let's get started with Lindsay's bio. Our distinguished guest. And on our next slide, we'll have her full biography. Okay. So, Lindsay Watson is a business owner. She's also an entrepreneur. She has started an organization that is critical, particularly to employment services. She's a seasoned professional, and she's been working for many years in human resources and business development for 17 years, actually, with expertise in staffing, recruiting, relationship management, and career coaching. Her passion lies in guiding clients and candidates of all levels to achieve their professional goals. As the co founder of the award winning FIA New York NYC Employment and Principal of Joy Fluent, a virtual assistant and support business, Lindsay leverages for entrepreneurial spirit to create ventures positively impacting individuals and communities, working with Fortune 500 companies to small businesses, and she has cultivated multi-million dollar relationships with organizations from Wall Street to Main Street. For Lindsay, the essence of building connections grounded in integrity, sincerity, and trust is key. She's recognized as the 2020 Lehigh Valley Business 40 Under 40 Award recipient and the 2023 Women of Influence winner. Her commitment to assisting others has gained recognition from various outlets in the Northeast. Beyond her professional pursuits, Lindsay is deeply committed to serving her church and community. She's recognized as the 2020 Volunteer Week Recognition Communications recipient for her dedication as an American Red Cross volunteer. She serves on the boards of the American Heart Association, which is highly applicable and relevant for today, the Miller Keystone Blood Center, and the Habitat for Humanity of Greater Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, being the first African American woman to do so. Lindsay remains focused on her core mission, facilitating others in achieving their dreams and unlocking their full potential. And whether she's coaching a client or volunteering, she seeks to instill hope in humanity and create a positive impact in the world. Her notable affiliations include FIA NYC Employment Services, and she has received the 2023 Women of Influence honoree and the 2020 40 Under 40 Award from the Lehigh Valley Business Journal. Lindsay has her bachelor's in communications from St. John's University and a certificate in women's entrepreneurship from Cornell University. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, I guess now may be the time for us to introduce our connection.
Yes, I'm hoping I can say it.
Yes, say it.
You are my Dr. Sis.
Yes, Lindsay's my sister. We're sisters. Isn't that so cool? You get a session with live sisters talking about health. I mean, come on. Does it get any better than this? It doesn't get any better than this. So, Lindsay, how do you want to do this? Can I start off asking you a question?
Absolutely.
When growing up? Okay. What do you remember from when we were growing up that was healthy about our lifestyle?
We were outside a lot, right? We had constant exercise. We would go to school, then come home and be out until the sun went down, and sometimes longer. We would climb trees, we'd play with our friends. We weren't both involved in sports. And so we were just naturally active.
We were. And I remember we ate a lot of vegetables, a lot. Like compared to our friends, we were eating things like bok choy and mushrooms. And what else? What are some other? We ate pretty much every vegetable. Remember, mom said that we could choose one vegetable that we didn't want to eat?
Just
what
one. Lima
You-
beans. And still to this
Lima.
day, you just won't catch me. You
You
won't.
won't. Mine was asparagus, and to this day, you won't catch me eating asparagus. So I'm mentioning this as a fun intro into, or a fun peek into our history, and also to let you know that the reality is, even though I promote eating plant-based and mushroom-based products as much as possible, sometimes there are foods that we genetically are not attracted to, or foods we just don't like, and that's okay. So just wanted to throw that in there. I remember when we were kids, we used to go on trips that involved movement too, right? We used to go to Maine and walk on the beaches. We used to go to New York and do a lot of walking. So there was a lot of physical movement involved and a lot of produce involved when we were growing up.
Absolutely.
What do you notice about your peers nowadays and how they stay healthy?
So I'm thankful to live in a community where it's easy for us to get together. And I think that matters. So we've got a lot of paths, trails, places where we can get together and kind of move. So most of my peers are active in some way, shape, or form. One of the things that's becoming more popular, since we're now working professionals, right? We're in that age range, is we have walking meetings. So we'll find a spot and we'll literally just walk and talk. So what I'm finding is that my peers are looking for ways to intentionally be active, because it's not as easy as growing up and playing. You know, we have responsibilities, we have jobs, we have businesses, we have families, we have kids, but there's still opportunity. It's just a lot more intentional. So walking's popular, finding trails is really popular, or getting together, maybe doing like a group hike is something that I'm starting to see more often now as well.
That's great. And I think that's good too, because if you can go outside, we're still in the COVID era, right? If you can go outside, it's a much lower risk of catching or spreading something pathogenic, which means disease causing. So I like that outside concept. Again, that's a common theme here. I will add that there are lots of folks who cannot safely go outside. There are areas where there are dense populations. There are areas that have high violence, high crime rates. And so it makes it difficult for folks to get outside. So a recommendation is, if you have the time, when you have the time, do something inside. Jumping jacks, which one of our major leaders on CCG just talked about. You can do jumping jacks in your house by yourself. Nobody has to watch you. You don't have to be in front of anybody. Sit-ups, you can do push-ups. You can find an online free streaming service where you can follow the lead of the personal trainer. You can do walking in the house, just walk around your house. So even if you don't have safe access to being outside, there are always opportunities to move inside.
Yeah.
All right, Lindsay, what challenges do you face when it comes to being and feeling healthy?
So it's just actually, Dr. Sis, what you said, when I'm inside, if I'm working from home, what am I doing? So I'll tell myself, I've had a standing desktop for years, and I've not used it until the past few months. And so now what I'll do is, if I have a lot of meetings, I'll lift that sucker up and just stand. I don't know how many calories it burns, but at least I'm not sitting and I don't feel as idle. And so that's one thing I'm starting, because I'm realizing if I'm just sitting all day, and even if I do get out, with my friends a few times a week, that may not be enough activity. So the challenge is really finding something I can commit to if I'm home and if I'm working all day.
Okay, thank you. That standing desk or standing interaction with a computer or a piece of form of technology is huge. It activates your core, so our abdominal muscles, activates your glutes, which are booty muscles, activates your thighs, back muscles, so that you can stand taller and stronger. And as Lindsay mentioned, you might burn some calories. I don't usually focus on calorie counts. However, it's true. You do burn more calories when your core is engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helps to realign our spines. When we're sitting at the desk, oftentimes we're hunched over. I'm definitely guilty of that. Or we're hyper stretched back, or we're leaning to the side, or we're all cramped up trying to finish that last assignment or that last presentation.
Yeah.
Standing up is a very natural position for us, so is lying down. And every time we stand up, we activate so much that it inherently and naturally promotes health. We have a question here that just came in. What are my thoughts about intermittent fasting? Um, Even though we're not talking very specifically about diet right now, intermittent fasting means that you decide, and there are several ways to approach this. You decide during which hours of a 24-hour period you're going to eat. Some people do a 6-hour window where they might eat twice in 6 hours. Some people do an 8-hour window where they might eat twice in 8 hours. Some people will stretch out. They're eating over the course of 12 hours. They might eat 2 or 3 times. And those meals are usually larger so that you get the calorie density that you need. However, when, not everyone, but when we use intermittent fasting, it can create a response in our bodies whereby our cells respond and say, oh my goodness, we need to kick in metabolism right now, and we need to use these nutrients as necessary. Versus when we eat all day, when we graze all day, so maybe 6 snacks a day or 6 small meals a day, we're in a constant state of feeding and metabolism. And intermittent fasting is not for everyone. Neither is eating 6 small meals a day. It depends on a whole host of needs for your personal body, which is why it would be great to set up an appointment with me. I am a clinical nutritionist and I can help you with this. I appreciate your question, though, about intermittent fasting. So those are my thoughts. My thoughts are it is a potential way of eating. It can be healthy for some people, and I encourage you to look into it if you're interested. All right. Ooh, we have another one. My daughters use online personal training, and my wife has a standing desk and she loves it. Okay. All right. Shout out to the standing desk. Thank you, Lindsay, for promoting that.
That's
All
awesome.
right. Let's come back to general health. Where can you go to keep yourself healthy? When you think about, okay, what can I do? Where are the actual places I can go that can help me to feel healthy? What comes to mind, Lindsay?
So for me, as you know, I'm more of an extrovert. Mental health, from that approach, being around friends and loved ones, that makes me feel better. Just having my community. If we get together for coffee or go for a walk, there's a mental health component that I'm realizing I need. And I think I learned this when the shutdown had happened and I couldn't get out, couldn't be around my friends and my family. It was tough. So I try to be consistent with that, even if it's just a couple times a week, being around loved ones from that mental health perspective. And then physically getting out, there's the gym, the memberships that we probably pay for and maybe don't use as much as we should, but we still pay for them so we could jump in, right? There's walking, there's exercise inside, or there may be just a group of people that you find you get together and you guys figure something out. I recently started asking if there's anyone who's part of Planet Fitness so I could have gym buddies, which would help me be accountable. But what I learned is, one, we love being together, but two, if I don't want to go, but I know the other person said they're going to go, I'm going to go, right? Versus if it's just me, I probably will just not go. So if there's a safe space at a gym, that is something, that I'm starting to look at as well, in addition to the other things.
Yeah, safe spaces at the gym. And I think is the term accountability partner.
Yeah.
Okay. Having somebody go with you. I am pretty much the opposite.
Yeah.
We are sisters. We have a lot in common and we have a lot of differences,
Yeah.
which makes sense because that's how the world is. The world is dynamic. I prefer to be by myself. I
Mhm.
prefer to work out in front of a mirror so I can see what I'm doing, to see how I'm flexing, to make sure I'm flexing well. And I prefer to work out by myself too because it gives me a chance to think, which I think all day anyway. You already know this.
Yeah.
I get to like hyper think. I get to consider what has gone on throughout the day, what I might want to teach later, maybe methods I can use for working with my patients, et cetera. So it's kind of a quiet time for me. I also, I'm not going to lie, I listen to my own heart rate and my heartbeat while I'm working out because I think it's interesting. And I recommend it for other people too. Okay.
Awesome.
I think at this point, Lindsay, if you're comfortable, why don't we switch over to you asking me a couple of questions and we'll kind of go back and forth.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Sis. So I'm going to just kind of maybe ask a question related to what we've been talking about so far.
Okay.
So the cardiovascular system, we've talked about getting out, moving around. What is the cardiovascular system and how important is it for us to understand what it is so that we can remain healthy?
Thank you. Well, the cardiovascular system, just a heads up, I'm obsessed with learning about and teaching about this. So, just a heads up, it's going to be a little sciencey. That's okay because I know this whole audience can handle it.
Yeah.
The cardiovascular system, cardio pertaining to the heart, vascular pertaining to vessels and blood, is comprised of the heart, blood vessels, and blood. So, when you hear that somebody has cardiovascular disease, it's not always heart disease or hypertension. It could be a blood related issue, it could be a vessel related issue. You could have um, a blockage in a vein or an artery. The cardiovascular is heart and then blood vessels and blood. It's under constant pressure, which makes sense because if you think about our bodies, our skin wraps everything, just about everything, eyes, nails, we have some, well, there's skin under nails, but our skin wraps pretty much everything. And we're essentially watertight for all intensive purposes. There's a lot of pressure in there. In fact, when you go in to get your blood pressure reading, that's what we're checking to see the blood pressure that's expressed in your arteries and that's expressed from your heart and your whole cardiovascular system. So we got this skin and all these organs inside of your skin that contribute to this high pressure system. It's really cool. The only problem is that if the system is under too much pressure, then we can have problems, right? Also, if there's not enough pressure, we can have problems. The cardiovascular system is phenomenal. It delivers oxygen to tissues and it removes carbon dioxide. So when we inhale, we're taking in actually mostly nitrogen. That's okay. We focus on the oxygen because that's what we rely on the most. We take in oxygen, and then when we exhale, we release much of what we release is carbon dioxide. These are two gases, and these gases go into our lungs and then get into our blood and then circulate throughout our bodies. And the cardiovascular system also carries and delivers glucose, which is sugar, and nutrients and water and more. So this system is under pressure. It's doing the biggest stuff. If you don't have oxygen, you are not alive. And if you can't get rid of carbon dioxide, you are not alive. And it's delivering key components that we need in order to stay alive and to stay healthy and to stay happy. Really, really important for us to talk about it. On that note, I'd like for us to go to a break. Maybe you can get up and get your cardiovascular system moving more by getting up and walking around the house, drinking some water, take a stretch. We're going to go on a quick commercial break. We will come right back to you, back with Lindsay Watson, our distinguished guest for today, to talk more about getting healthy and staying healthy. See you in just a bit.
What if you could build your own city? A place where every child can find nurturing people to help them achieve their full potential. A place where every adult can access job training support, where health education is abundant, where social justice ruled the land. A place without limitations. Welcome. You have arrived at STEM City, USA. It is what every city should be. A safe and trusted community where you find people and resources to help you become everything you are and beyond. STEM City is unlike anything you have ever experienced. It is a digital twin of the world around you, only better. STEM City is about energy and soul renewal. It is more than a digital world. You can almost feel the power of live cultural events, music, and theater. STEM City promises a better future for children with caring mentors and hands-on activities with dedicated tutors to support our youth. STEM City is your passport to a healthy lifestyle with weekly events addressing our community's many issues. STEM City is your financial well-being with helpful information on wealth management, career advancement, job training, and so much more. STEM City is the community you deserve. It is the city where your dreams can come true. STEM City USA, a place in the sky that is accessible to all who reach for the stars.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you all got up and moved. I moved a little bit. You may hear my dog behind me moving. He's right here with us. Say hi to the dog. Welcome back to Healthy Doses with Dr. Erica E. Watson. I am Dr. Erica E. Watson, and I have my distinguished guest on, Lindsay Watson, who is my sister. And I mean blood sister, as in we're related, we're genetically connected. We share parents. We're sisters. We're actually sisters. So we have Lindsay on. She's an entrepreneur. She also did not mention, I'm mentioning it. She's a singer, and she does a whole bunch of work with cardiovascular health and outcomes in specific communities, especially with Black and Brown people. And Lindsay encourages a whole ton of people to achieve their very best in the business space. So welcome, Lindsay. Was that okay to say?
Sure.
Okay.
That's so fancy.
Was it fancy?
Fancy.
It was fancy. Welcome back, everybody. We were talking about the cardiovascular system and how it is made up of the heart, blood vessels, and blood. Oh, Lindsay, quick question.
Yeah.
Where is blood in our bodies when you think about blood?
Coursing through our bodies, our vessels, our veins.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to get that out there. Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our next topic, which is part of the cardiovascular system, related to the cardiovascular system.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I think you had a question for me.
Yes. So, I mean, we've heard the word, but can you define for us, Dr. Sis, what does hypertension mean?
Again, I do love talking about this. So hypertension is made up of two words, just like cardiovascular. Hyper means too much or high, and then tension is pressure or tension when you pull tension on something. In this case, we're talking about hypertension, too much pressure in and on the cardiovascular system. Usually we can measure hypertension through something like what we see up here. This is a blood pressure cuff, also called a sphygmomanometer, like saying that one. And we use the blood pressure cuff to measure blood pressure at any time of the day. We usually place it right here, right above the crease of your elbow, and we inflate the pressure cuff so that we can increase pressure and focus it in this area here. And then we put our stethoscope here and we listen for systolic over diastolic pressure. So we're listening for when the heart is under pressure and then relaxed, under pressure and then relaxed. And we get to hear the sound, and we can determine based on a pressure system using millimeters of mercury how high your blood pressure is. So standard for most adults in general is about what, 120/80. Do you usually hear that?
Yes.
Okay, that's general. That doesn't mean that everyone has to have 120/80 all the time. It's not even possible. However, that's about what we're looking for. Some people run low, some people run a little bit higher. But hypertension is when your blood pressure is consistently higher than the norm. So anything above 120 consistently is what we consider to be hypertension. And then there are above 120/80. And then there are different types of hypertension within that category. So when I run a blood pressure screening clinic, and when I have a person come in for me to check their blood pressure, I generally have them sit down and we talk for a few minutes if we can, if it's not really busy. And that gives them the opportunity to, one, not feel so anxious around me, the person who's going to be working with them, and two, for them to breathe and relax so that I can get an accurate blood pressure reading. The reason I'm sharing this is when you go in to have your blood pressure taken, you can always ask your provider if they could do the same. It can sometimes give more accurate results.
That's good to know.
Okay. All right, Lindsay, I have a question for you. What do you know about, well, I should ask, let's see, how can I rephrase it? What do your peers talk about blood when they think about blood pressure, hypertension? What do you or your peers think about? Anything come to mind, like particular groups or stressors?
Yeah, so my business partner and I, we co-own our staffing agency together, and he is in his 60s and a man of color. And so we often talk about health disparities in the community we live in. It's diverse, but it's not as diverse as it could be. So oftentimes conversations come up when we're around men of color about high blood pressure and all of the systemic pressures that lead to greater statistics when it comes to high blood pressure within the Black and Brown community, especially with our men of color. And so we do talk about it. We also talk about the symptoms. So it could be headaches, right? Feeling stressed, feeling like something's going to snap, here on the inside, elevated heart rate. There are different symptoms that I've been in conversations where I've heard those things. And when they get checked out, it's, the diagnosis is high blood pressure. So those are the kinds of conversations we have. I think I have it more with men than with women, to be honest, and specifically men of color.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for sharing. Yeah, as we age, our bodies change and our tissues change. Tissues meaning heart tissue, lung tissue, blood vessel tissue, etc.
Yeah.
And we can develop some weaknesses in some areas. And then we can have compound stress from a lifetime of stress. And then sometimes we're doing so much stuff that we're not paying attention to our nutrition, exercise, etc. And then there's also the case of living in a world with systemic and systematic racism, which is an all-time contributing factor for hypertension. So it's really important as we age to focus even more on our cardiovascular health for those specific reasons. And interestingly, you just mentioned your business partner. We had somebody send in a message just now. They say they're a 60-year-old Black man and always had concerns about their health. They had an annual physical and asked their physician about how to evaluate a blockage in their arteries. And they said that their physician recommends a stress test. Options? So I say, whatever your physician recommends, yay. However, I always recommend as well that you talk with your physician about what it is they want to order, and then you guys make the decision together. So I should probably back up and say, talk with your physician first and then make a decision from there. The stress test is non-invasive. They have you do some activities and they measure all kinds of blood gas levels and your heart rate and your blood pressure and other determinants of your cardiovascular health. And then they get a printout and they get all these images of what your body's been doing when it's under physical stress. So if you decide to have a stress test, just make sure you understand everything before going into it. and then pay attention to your results and always ask for your results and printed out copy or online copy. Always, always, always to keep those. So thank you for that question. I wanted to mention that my research in my dissertation was about reducing hypertension in African American women. African American meaning women whose ancestors were once enslaved living in what is now the United States. And I discovered that African American women have the highest rates of hypertension of any group in the United States of America. Black men are at a close second, and sometimes we fluctuate who has more, who has less, which is horrible to think of. It's the truth. So in our communities, in particular, Black and Brown communities overall have the highest rates of risk. It's really important for us to pay attention to our bodies as much as possible, regardless of your income, regardless of your insurance. Yeah. There are ways. There are free blood pressure clinics around. Eating more vegetables, we'll talk about this later, and fruit can help. We'll get more into that later, but just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, Lindsay, is it your turn?
It is. Okay, so this is a great segue. So you define the cardiovascular hypertension, type 2 diabetes. We've heard the term, and we know there's more than one type of diabetes. What is type 2 diabetes?
Type 2 diabetes. Okay. I think the word, let me try to remember. Diabetes comes from Latin or Greek. I think it's Greek, meaning siphon. And that came from people way back many, many years ago, recognizing that folks who had a condition, which we now know as diabetes, were urinating a lot. And the reason they were urinating a lot is because their blood sugar was too high. And so the body was trying to get rid of the blood sugar through the urine, which is what happens a lot of times in patients with type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes is a dysfunction of insulin and then therefore high blood sugar levels. We have this organ called the pancreas. Hopefully you can see it in the picture here. It's glowing orange. It looks kind of awkward. It's a really cool organ, actually, and it helps with digestion and metabolism. One of its key functions is to secrete a hormone called insulin. And what insulin does is it goes to the cells and it activates the absorption of glucose and use of glucose by the cells. That's a simple way of saying it. Mm-hmm. So if you've got enough insulin, which gets secreted right after you eat anything with glucose in it, if you've got enough insulin, it'll say to the cell, hey, guess what? This person, Lindsay, just ate, and we need for the glucose to get into the cell so that we can use the glucose, which is sugar, for us so that we have energy, because all cells need glucose as energy. Now, in type 2 diabetes, the pancreas is either not secreting insulin or the body is not recognizing the insulin secretion, or there's some other malfunction. And so you end up with really high blood sugar levels. And the danger with this is that if you've got extra sugar in your blood, then it makes your blood thicker, and that wears and tears on the cardiovascular system. This is why we talk about diabetes in relationship to the cardiovascular system. So that's a general overview. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. The insulin works very specifically in our livers, our muscle tissue, and our fat tissue. So if you have a really high level of fat, extra body fat, or liver damage, et cetera, you may be at increased risk of having type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Did that answer it, Lindsay?
Yeah, that's good to know. And it's all connected. It's
all connected.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to go back here. I missed a question. No, we'll stick with this. So when you hear type 2 diabetes, what do you think?
Too much sugar.
Too much sugar. Isn't some of our relatives even call it the sugar? Mm-hmm. Yep. In Spanish, they call it azúcar, which means sugar. Mm-hmm. I can ask somebody, ¿tiene azúcar? Which means, do you have diabetes? Yes, yes.
Yep.
And now we know why.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, though, about the American Heart Association, since they address diabetes in a way, too. What has been your experience with the American Heart Association?
So I have the pleasure of serving on the board of directors for the American Heart Association for the Greater Lehigh Valley chapter. The American Heart Association is a national organization and the only one of its kind to provide critical research to healthcare professionals in the medical community surrounding heart health. The research includes groundbreaking solutions and suggestions that have helped to create awareness and design different processes to combat heart health. The American Heart Association is celebrating its 100th year this year. It's pretty exciting. And I always tell people, I have Admiral Dad, Dr. Sis, my business partner who's an engineer. I'm surrounded by STEM professionals and I am not. So the way I give back to the STEM community is getting involved and helping to raise awareness so that you guys get to talk the talk, walk the walk, and really be hands-on with helping folks. So the American Heart Association experience I've had is learning about the mission and then advocating. I had a chance to do a fundraiser last year to create awareness, and my theme was helping to build bridges so that the Black and Brown community could begin to build trust with the medical community, because we know that's still an issue. And then also just participating in the events we have. We do a lot in our community through the AHA with training employees on CPR. And we partner with organizations to create heart healthy awareness campaigns, including exercise, plant-based diets, encouraging people to understand that we are not just a statistic, but that there is a need for continual investment in knowledge and understanding of how to improve our heart health and why that matters. The last thing I'll say is a big part of what the AHA, at least here, does is we do focus on maternal health. And that has been a theme these past few years, and talking about the different things that can happen in childbirth and surrounding childbirth so that moms are aware and that our communities are aware of what to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's huge. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. The maternal health conversation is one that is a session that we will have in the coming shows.
Wow.
And that's a really good connection here because Black women and Brown women are at high risk of death from birth, which is insane. It is just insane.
Yeah.
And also at high risk of hypertension and type 2 gestational diabetes, which is diabetes during pregnancy. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. We are definitely going to have a maternal health discussion. And hopefully, Lindsay, you'll be able to join us for that, especially with your background. You probably would, right? Can we get you to maybe join?
Sure, because it's you, Dr. Sis.
Okay. That works well. All right, let's go on. Oh, is it your turn to ask a question?
It is. I'm so excited. Okay, so who can develop hypertension?
Okay, good. Who can develop hypertension? I'm going to go here. Is anyone? Any questions? No, really. Anyone can develop hypertension. The folks who are most at risk, though, are Black and Brown individuals by default because of chronic stress and because of chronic reduced access to, which means you can't get because you don't have a car or you don't know how, or you don't have the good foods in the area. So you can't get good, healthy foods or safe exercise. And other groups at risk are elderly populations, those with other diseases or disorders like type 2 diabetes, those who have genetic predisposition to hypertension, and those who smoke both cigarettes and marijuana, and those who have overweight, who carry some overweight, or who have a term we call obesity. There are other groups as well, but those are the key groups that come to mind. And I'd also like to add that there are ways to manage hypertension, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So it's not the end of the world. But these are the groups that are generally at highest risk or higher risk. All right, we're going. Oh, you know what? I might as well talk about who's at higher risk for type 2 diabetes too.
Yes, that'd be great.
It's the same. It's the same groups. The same. So just reverse our show by a minute and a half?
Yeah.
And apply that to diabetes. And definitely if you have a family history of type 2 diabetes, I am not implying that it is inherited because I'm not sure if we've confirmed that it is inherited. It could be, and I just don't know. But if you have a predisposition, if you have a family history of type 2 diabetes or hypertension, certainly you could be at increased risk as well. Or if you drink a lot of alcohol too, you're at an increased risk of hypertension and type 2 diabetes. So hopefully we can find a way for you to be able to manage smoking and or drinking, which I've learned is not an easy process. I've done a lot of research about it. All right, Lizzie, I'll ask you, which foods do you think might contribute the most to type 2 diabetes?
I would think processed stuff, so processed meats. I mean, we live in a country where a lot of stuff is automated, and the shelf life maybe takes priority over the health life of the product. So anything with additives or non-natural substances that keep things on the shelf longer, but definitely processed meats, right? I see that a lot with the AHA paraphernalia, high sugar or high fat foods as well. And then these trans fats, and like low sugar, low salt stuff typically has other additives to compensate. So it doesn't make it healthy. So yeah, those will be my first thoughts.
Definitely processed. You don't always know what's put into the processed foods.
Right.
They taste good. Oreos taste good. Do they? I mean, they taste good, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure somebody somewhere likes Doritos. I don't eat dairy products, so I'm sure Doritos taste good. The food tastes good, which is why we keep buying it.
Yeah.
It's not good for us in the long run. It doesn't mean that if you eat some every once in a while, it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes you have to do the Oreos. That's okay. Just less. Fewer of them is better. At this point, we're going to take a little break. We're going to get up and stretch. And then when we come back, we are going to talk about some options for managing your hypertension and type 2 diabetes. And we are going to hear from Lindsay about ways that we can inspire others to take better care of themselves, because we're taking care of ourselves. However, we are part of a larger community always. And so we want to influence others to live the healthiest lives they can as well. So right now we're going to take a break. I think it will be for 2 minutes. Get up, stretch, drink some water, and we'll see you right back here shortly.
Get ready for one of the most trusted communities for STEM in the nation. Career development and impact. Network building and professional development. Celebration of career achievement, prestigious national awards and events. Access to the most influential industries, looking for the best and the brightest. 3 days of impact. It's BEA 38, and it's coming back to Baltimore for the first time in nearly 20 years. You don't want to miss the event of the year for Impact in STEM. The BEA STEM Conference, Becoming Everything You Are, February 15th through the 17th, 2024, at the Baltimore Convention Center. Mark your calendars now. That's February 15th through the 17th, 2024, at the Baltimore Convention Center. For more information, visit www.bea.org. BEA, Becoming Everything You Are.
Welcome back, everyone, to Healthy Doses with Dr. Erica E. Watson. I am Dr. Watson, and this is the distinguished guest of the day, of the whole earth ever, Lindsay Watson, who is my sister. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Dr. Sis.
Well, speaking of Dr. Sis, we had a question from the audience, and I'm going to read you the question, and then I'm going to ask you to guess who it might be who asked the question, okay? You know a lot of people, so sorry for the pressure in advance. However, here goes the question from the audience. The question is, are Chicago Vienna hot dogs okay to eat? Can you think of anyone, and you don't have to say their name if you don't want to, who might be asking if Chicago Vienna hot dogs are okay to eat?
I'm surprised it took this long for us to get the question.
You can't. Well, responding to our contributor, our question contributor, Chicago Vienna hot dogs probably taste really good. They have good salt and flavor. I used to eat them back in the day when I ate meat. And they have so much sodium that it's ridiculous. And they're so processed that it's ridiculous. I understand that me sharing this with you is not going to stop you from eating Chicago Vienna hot dogs. However, again, if you can limit them, that would be great. In fact, I'm with an organization called the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's a totally plant and mushroom-based organization. And one of the key topics that we cover is processed meats. That is one of the leading contributors to poor cardiovascular health. So really, I should be saying don't eat them. However, I know the reality is that folks will eat them. So please try to limit them. I don't know, one a year? Does that sound good? Or one every 2 years? Or never? You could try the never timeline and see if that happens. What's the difference? Ooh, here's a question from Omar. What's the difference between vegetarian and vegan diets? Well, thank you, Omar.
Yeah.
A vegetarian diet does not rely on, excludes killed animals.
Mhm.
So you can still eat, some people can still eat eggs and milk products. However, they won't eat fish or chicken or beef or pork. A vegan diet excludes all animal products, anything that comes from an animal. That includes honey. Honey comes from
Bees.
Bees, yes. Bees are animals.
Oh, yeah.
So this is totally animal-free eating. And it's good for our bodies if we can sustain it. Not everybody can do it. And it's really good for the planet as well, because the more animals we raise, the more land we use, and the more pollution we create, period. It's just the truth. Okay, Lindsay, let's come back to where we were. All right, are we talking now about managing hypertension and diabetes?
Yeah, I think it's my turn. I think
Okay.
so, to ask Dr. Sis. So what are the treatment you had talked about that you've got solutions on how to reverse? So what are the treatment or intervention options for hypertension and type 2 diabetes?
Okay, good. We actually started talking about this at the beginning of the show. Remember we were talking with Quan?
Yeah.
Where were we? Oh, no, time out. I think you were going to ask me earlier a question about shoveling.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now would be a great time. So we finally have winter again. We haven't had a good solid winter in about 2 to 3 years. So now that it's snowing, and not just snow, but it's cold, so that everything is freezing, right?
Yes.
What are some tips that you can give us to help us be mindful to not overexerting, right? If we're not, in our top shape or top health with all the things we've talked about, how can we still shovel safely, and be mindful of our cardiovascular system while we do it?
Ooh, check you out. Okay, I like this question. Well, first of all, we're supposed to bend at the hips, squat at the hips as much as possible when you scoop and lift and throw, or scoop and move. Pay attention to your body. If your shoulder hurts, you should probably take a break. I mean, if your elbow hurts, you should probably take a break. If you pulled a muscle in your back, please do me a favor, just go take a break. Go do what you have to do to work out that muscle, please. If you feel yourself heavily breathing to the point where it's uncomfortable, please, please, please take a break to figure out what's going on. If you have asthma and you're having breathing issues, just stop. You may need to get emergency intervention from an inhaler or a provider. I don't know. Just pay attention to your body. However, I love shoveling, so I encourage you to shovel if you feel healthy doing it, if you know how to do it, because it is such a workout. It is mentally calming. It can be mentally calming because you're doing something physical. You're engaging with planet Earth. And if you can go help a neighbor, it can just fill your spirit to help someone. So please be careful when you shovel. Shovel when you can, because it's a great workout. And always squat at the hips. And make sure that when you're lifting and throwing, you're squatting when you're doing it. A lot of us just stand and throw, and then we say, "Oh, my lower back hurts." It's because we weren't squatting. And I know because the other day I hurt my lower back. Thank you for that question. We had another question from the chat. Which delivers better health results, vegan or vegetarian diets? It depends on your needs. And Omar, that would be a great time for you to send me a message to set up an appointment. I'll give you the information at the end. It really depends on your needs. Some folks will really benefit from a vegan diet, and some folks need other options. So please feel free to reach out and we can talk about your specific needs. The hot dog question could have come from someone else. Okay. Is a burnt bologna sandwich, is it bad? Yes, it's bad. We know where these questions are coming from.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The burnt part, if you're eating burnt foods all the time, those can contribute to an oncogenic process, which is pre-cancer, cancerous process. It does not mean that you're going to get cancer from eating burnt foods. However, if you eat a lot of them over time, there's a greater risk. And the bologna is just bad. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's just bad.
Yeah.
Okay, here. Go ahead, Lindsay. Sorry.
Well, no, I'm just thinking because you have been my Dr. Sis for years, right? Sis forever, but Dr. Sis, I've been coming to you for advice on my medical workups. Every time I get a blood test, I'll send it to you, and then you'll be like, ask for this. And you had mentioned in one of the comments a few minutes ago, listen to your doctor, but also be a part of the decision making. And that's why, to me, I'll continue to do my part, because we need more Dr. Sisters. We need more yous. You are advocates for our community, and you break things down in a way where we can understand it. And then we could go to our doctors and say, we need this, this, and that, not just what they recommend, but that holistic approach and that view. And I think that that's super important, that continue to have these conversations and to have people like you to be able to tap into. I know it's helped me. My iron levels are up now, right? I understand why I eat and what works for me and what doesn't. And when I go back to my doctors, to be honest, sometimes they miss stuff. They're not as attentive. And so you've helped me to plug in those gaps so that I can understand what's going on the inside, and then, make the right decisions on how to be better. So thank you.
Thank you. That was very kind. Thank you. I do love advocating for patients. It's probably, I think it's my favorite thing ever. And as Lindsay mentioned, please self-advocate as much as possible. It doesn't mean you need to walk into the office and know, what HA1C means. Oh, by the way, time out. I forgot to mention that. Please ask your provider to order a test called an HA1C, otherwise known as an A1C. That A1C is a specific type of hemoglobin that is an indicator of if you may have prediabetes or diabetes. And it measures your red blood, your HA1C level over the course of 3 months. And it gives you a readout of how much sugar you've had in your blood for that 3 months, and how your red blood cells, your hemoglobin, how your red blood cells have responded to that sugar. So please ask for an A1C test anytime you go into a provider and you're going to get blood work done, because that can help to determine your prediabetes or diabetes risk.
Great.
Where were we? Oh, thank you, Lindsay, for mentioning that. Please advocate for yourself. You can always just ask a general question like, oh, thank you, nurse practitioner George, for recommending that I check my iron. Why do I need to check my iron? Just a simple question like that. And if you're not getting answers, do your research before you move forward with a major procedure. Do your research as much as you can. Bring someone, like Lindsay mentioned, having an advocate, bring someone into the office with you. Make a list of questions before you go in. It doesn't matter how many questions you have, make the list. Sometimes you can condense them, because honestly, providers don't always have a ton of time to sit and talk. Yeah. But if you can at least bring up your key concerns before you go, have them ready before you go in, that's extremely helpful. All right, okay. Thank you for that note. Oh, where can we find more information, right? So I have 2 websites up here. The first one is all Lindsay Watson-ish. It's the AHA, the American Heart Association website. It's heart.org. It's really easy. And when you click on the link, you'll see pictures like the one you see on the top right. They give you all tips and resources for how to keep your heart healthy. There's another site, surprisingly, diabetes.org. You can click on the link there and you'll see the picture on the bottom right pop up, and they as well give resources and tips and tools and contact information as well. I have another recommendation here. of course, set up an appointment with me, but also the committee I mentioned before, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM. They have this really cool app. You don't have to do all of it. Try it out though. It's free. It's called the 21-Day Vegan Kickstart. I did it. I mean, I'm vegan. You don't have to be vegan, but I recommend trying it. There's some really good meals on there, and it's simple. It tells you what to buy, how to do it. It's got pictures, and that's it. It's easy, straightforward, and there are videos on there. There's a video on there of a new colleague I have. She's phenomenal, so please look out for her.
Awesome.
And so there are lots of tips there in terms of eating. We're opening up now for questions. However, Lindsay, did we cover what we were? No. I have to ask, I get to ask you, in what ways can we inspire others to take better care of themselves?
Wow. I guess there's a lot of different approaches. Mental health, making sure we have people that we trust and that are trained for us to talk with about inner conflicts that the rest of the world may not be able to see, because that impacts our bodies, the stresses we carry, the worries, the concerns. So I would definitely recommend that. And then really thinking about how us being healthy impacts our communities, whether it's our families, our colleagues, our loved one, the people that we're engaged with. If I'm healthy, then I'm able to come and contribute from a different way if I'm not. So just keeping that in mind, I think it can be an easy way to be consistent daily, just taking care of ourselves to make sure we can show up and be present from the inside out.
Thank you. Showing up and being present very directly means being alive and feeling alive, right? And interacting. Yeah. Well, to just summarize briefly, in order for us to have optimal cardiovascular health, recommendations are to move as much as possible. And these are also ways to help prevent and manage type 2 diabetes. Move as much as possible, eat as many plants and things that grow directly from the earth, including mushrooms, which are not plants, they're fungi, but I'm calling them mushrooms today. Eat as much plant-based stuff as you can. Drink a lot of water, interact with people you love, take hikes, move around in the house, do your workouts in the house, call someone if you need help. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be a friend you trust. Stay in touch with your family. Love yourself as much as you possibly can. These are really key tips. And also, as usual and forever, please feel free to reach out to me to set up an appointment. We can talk very specifically about your unique needs. I have a very detailed intake. We have great discussions, and we collaborate on your nutrition outcomes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lindsay.
Thank you, Dr. Sis. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and thank you, team, for joining us today and contributing to the conversation. I look forward to seeing you at our next session. There's my logo up there on the website, wisetreehealthconnections.com. In our next session, we will be talking, of course, more about health. And you might see me doing that cooking live thing that we've been talking about.
Awesome. I
just want to make sure I have some good meals prepped first. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us. And we will see you all next time.
Get ready for one of the most trusted communities for STEM in the nation. Career development and impact. Network building and professional development. Celebration of career achievement. Prestigious national awards and events. Access to the most influential industries. Looking for the best and the brightest. 3 days of impact. It's BEA 38. And it's coming back to Baltimore for the first time in nearly 20 years. You don't want to miss the event of the year for Impact in STEM. The BEA STEM Conference, Becoming Everything You Are, February 15th through the 17th, 2024, at the Baltimore Convention Center. Mark your calendars now. That's February 15th through the 17th, 2024, at the Baltimore Convention Center. For more information, visit www.bea.org. BEA, becoming everything you are.